academic careers. Eva, if you introduce yourself, where you're working, what stage you're at, and what you're working in.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm still a PhD student, and research came into my life very fortunately because my background is medicine, and during my undergrad studies, I never had the chance to know what research was, mostly basic research. It was during my training, I'm still a radiology trainee, that I was lucky to come to Brussels, indeed, to the Erasmus Hospital for a rotation on MRI, applied to pancreatic cancer, that I got to know what was the other side of medicine, that was research. And this came to me as a surprise, and indeed it was a turning point in my life. That after this rotation I went back to Portugal and decided that research was what I wanted to do. That made me apply for some funding to try to do a PhD that I did manage to get, and that basically opened me a new windows of opportunities to apply to several labs, namely to Cambridge, where I'm developing my PhD now, and where I am a Marie Curie Fellow as well. On my PhD, I'm focusing on pancreatic cancer again and its early detection, but I'm using a very fancy technique. So I'm doing a preclinical research, and this was a choice. And in our lab, we're using a very fancy technique based on metabolism. Basically, the technique is called dynamic nuclear polarization, and what it allows us is that carbon-13 labeled molecules to become more visible on magnetic resonance. And by doing so, we are basically able to see metabolism in vivo and in real time for the first time. And I'm basically applying that same technique to perform early detection of pancreatic cancer. And so far, it has worked. So I think that will have then a clinical application and impact, because at the end of the day, being a medical doctor, all I care about is translating the science that I'm doing to better patient care and management.
Were you in the middle of a clinical training when you took time out to do this research?
Yes, I was in my second year of radiology, clinical radiology training, when I had the chance to come here to do a rotation, and that changed my life.
Okay. Are you going to return to clinical training, or are you going to stay?
Yes, I think that will be my next step. So I am planning to finishing my PhD by the end of this year, and then going back and finishing radiology.
Okay, well, that's unusual enough in itself. All doctors, my wife is a doctor, all doctors do some period of study. Most of them don't publish even, let alone go on and go for the PhD. So it's an unusual to have taken the time out of that career to go into research.
Well, the reality in my country, I'm from Portugal, we don't do research. Usually we do clinical research. I don't think at this point we are, well, in fact there are some funding that is now promoting the so-called translational research, that is basically the loop between basic research and the hospital. However, I think in medicine it's still easy to go through the trail of getting your degree, then you know that you'll have your work for sure, and then you keep on doing that, doing basically medicine. I think I'm at this stage from my program, because as I mentioned before, I had a fellowship back in Portugal. We are only about 30 in all Portugal that has decided to try to do research at the same time as training. I've interrupted totally,
yes,
because I moved to Cambridge. And I think I was one of the few that decided to do basic research as a choice, because I think the future of medicine will be supported by basic science.
Well, it is. Listen, all medical doctors at some stage, certainly in the UK, are obliged to go back and do some sort of further training and further research, but very rarely, usually it's regarded as an interruption to their clinical careers. There are those who have that, like your own.
Yeah, the reality that I've been facing in the UK is, and this is still controversial, is that most people think that everyone, medical, and I mean medical doctors, should do research. And to be honest, I don't agree. I don't think everyone should do research. But yes, everyone should be given the chance to do research. Because at the end of the day, what I think about the medical doctors is that at the end of the day, we have to tick all these boxes. We have to do teaching, we have to see patients, we have to do research, we have to be superheroes. And at the end of the day, by doing all this, we're not focusing, we're not being great at something. We're just promoting mediocrity, and this is just a personal view. So I think in terms of research, yes, we should be given the chance to do research, but not all people should do research.
Okay. My own experience from talking at dinner parties is that no doctor wanted to do research until they'd done research, and when they had done research, every other doctor had to do research as well. And that's the way it worked for them. If